Pedro seemed unfazed, assuring his friend that he knew these waters well and that sharks wouldn't be a problem. Yet the tales of terror lingered in Owen's mind, and the thought of facing these predators in the deep, dark waters of the Pacific Ocean filled him with dread. The following day, Pedro and Owen plunged into the vast ocean surrounding the island, their senses alive with the thrill of adventure. The vibrant underwater world was a feast for their eyes as they swam alongside colorful schools of fish and majestic sea turtles. The waters were so clear that they could see for miles, but the clarity also made it easier for Owen to spot something sinister lurking in the shadows. His heart racing, he saw two enormous great white sharks silently gliding towards them, their razor-sharp teeth glinting menacingly in the sunlight. Owen signaled Pedro frantically, pointing at the two great white sharks that glided with an ominous grace through the clear blue water. Pedro motioned for Owen to follow him, a confident smile on his face as he swam towards the creatures. Owen felt a chill run down his spine as he realized how close they were getting. Suddenly, the sharks seemed to sense their presence, and their behavior changed. They began to move in erratic patterns, as if agitated by the two divers invading their territory. With their heart racing and adrenaline pumping, Pedro and Owen tried to retreat as fast as they could from the agitated sharks. But it seemed like the predators had other plans in store. Suddenly, one of the sharks broke away from the group and charged towards Pedro like a missile, the force of the impact sending him spinning out of control. The sickening crack of bones echoed through the water as the shark slammed into Pedro's back, leaving him paralyzed and at the mercy of the ocean's currents. As the water swallowed him whole, Pedro's life hung in the balance. Pedro was helpless as the second shark made its move. Its mouth gaped wide open, and Owen could see the rows of jagged teeth as the shark charged towards Pedro. The shark lunged at Pedro with incredible speed, and Owen could hear the bone-crunching impact as it sunk its teeth deep into Pedro's shoulder. Blood gushed out from the wound as the first shark joined in, biting down on Pedro's leg with relentless force. The two beasts pulled in opposite directions, tearing through Pedro's flesh and bones like a pair of ferocious machines. The sound of snapping bones echoed through the water as the sharks ripped off Pedro's limbs, leaving behind a cloud of blood and dismembered body parts. Pedro's body convulsed in agony as the great white sharks mercilessly tore into his flesh. Piercing pain consumed him, and he realized his life was slipping away. He felt the cold embrace of the ocean as his body continued to freefall, the only sound the deafening roar of bubbles escaping his regulator. The water around him became a swirling vortex of red as the sharks ferociously ripped apart his body, leaving behind only scraps of torn flesh and blood-stained water. The scene of horror unfolded before Owen's eyes, and he was powerless to stop it. The two sharks were like monstrous predators, unrelenting and savage as they tore apart Pedro's body. Owen was rooted to the spot, frozen in terror at the sight of his friend's brutal demise. Eventually, he regained some semblance of control and began to swim away, his heart pounding in his chest. He could feel the shark's presence behind him, a dark and ominous force lurking in the depths of the ocean. Owen's heart raced excitedly as she took her first steps into the ocean. The warm water engulfing her body was exhilarating, and she felt truly alive. Emily's heart raced as she swam further out to the ocean. She felt invincible, as if nothing could stop her. But as she gazed down into the depths below, she noticed a group of dark shadows gliding gracefully through the water. The shape of their fins and the cold, dead eyes staring back at her made her heart beat. It took a moment for her to realize what they were, but as they drew closer, she knew the truth. Bull sharks. The rumors she had heard about these deadly predators came flooding back to her, but instead of fear, Emily felt a sense of fascination. She had never seen a bull shark before, and the adrenaline rush of the moment drove her closer to the pack. The glint of their razor-sharp teeth was mesmerizing, and she couldn't resist the urge to get closer. Emily's hand trembled as she reached for her phone. the desire to capture the perfect shot taking over her. With the bull shark swimming so close, it would be the perfect opportunity to impress her friends with a breathtaking picture. She tried to steady her breathing, careful not to startle the sharks as she extended her arm to take the photo. But little did she know that she was putting herself in grave danger. Emily's body went rigid as the shark suddenly lunged towards her. She could feel the force of the water as the predator rapidly closed in, its jaws agape and revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. Panic surged through Emily's veins, and she held her breath, not daring to move. Emily's fascination quickly turned to terror as the bull shark circled around her. She could see every detail of its body, the rough, gray skin, the powerful tail propelling it forward, the rows of teeth waiting to tear her apart. Despite her fear, she couldn't help but feel a strange sense of wonder at the creature's beauty. But that feeling quickly dissipated as she realized the danger she was in. Emily's heart raced as the bull shark pack closed on her. She could feel their hot breath on her skin and smell the metallic scent of blood and sea salt. Their dark, unblinking eyes locked on hers, and she knew she was in trouble. She kicked her legs frantically, trying to swim away, but the sharks were too fast. They circled around her, their fins cutting through the water rapidly. Emily's mind raced as she struggled to devise a plan, but her thoughts were jumbled and panicked. She could feel the water churn around her as the sharks closed in for the kill. As Emily struggled to escape the impending attack, her screams echoed across the deserted beach. Her heart pounded in her chest, and her lungs burned as she gasped for air. The sharks had clamped onto her limbs, pulling her down with each passing moment. Emily could feel the rough texture of their skin against her skin, and the searing pain of their teeth sinking into her flesh. The salt water stung her eyes, making it difficult to see as she fought for her life. As the sharks pulled her deeper into the ocean, Emily realized the gravity of the situation. She was surrounded by these relentless predators, and no one was around to save her. Her friends on the shore heard her cries and rushed to the water's edge. They could see the sharks circling, their fins cutting through the water. They called out to Emily, but there was no response. The water turned red with blood as the sharks on track to their adventures, while the soft sand tickled their toes. But beneath the idyllic scenery lay a world of danger, and it was only a matter of time before they would find themselves entangled in its grasp. As the sun began to set, Melissa and her family sat down at a beachside bar to enjoy a drink in an undersea volcanic crater. Intrigued, Melissa and her family eagerly inquired for more details about the location. The local described it as a magnificent wonder of nature, with an abundance of marine life and underwater caves waiting to be explored. As the group imagined themselves diving into the clear blue water of the crater, they felt a sense of excitement and apprehension. They had never attempted anything like this before, and the unknown dangers lurking beneath the surface added to the thrill. The idea of venturing into a crater formed by a volcano that had been active, she used her underwater flashlight to shine a light on the shadows. Melissa was petrified to see a pack of tiger sharks stalking the murky waters. In a panic, Melissa swam to the surface and alerted her whole family. The family were in a frenzy, thrashing relentlessly with their efforts to reach the safety of the waiting boat. The chaos caught the attention of the sharks. The pack of sharks swam towards the commotion. Realizing that there's prey in the water, the predators went on a feeding frenzy. The rest of the family were almost upon the boat, but Melissa was not so lucky. In a matter of seconds, she was surrounded and circled around by a pack of hungry tiger sharks. Melissa could see the fins of 5 sharks circling around her. She tried to swim away as fast as she could, but the sharks were faster. Suddenly, one of the predators lunged at her, biting Melissa's left leg. Melissa screamed in agony as she felt the shark's razor-sharp teeth tear her flesh. The water around them was crimson red with Melissa's blood mixing with the salt water. The smell of the blood in the water crazed the other sharks, who were overcome with their primal instincts and hunger. The other sharks started attacking Melissa, who was helpless against the might of the predatory beast of the sea. As the first shark latched onto Melissa's leg, tossing her around like a rag doll in the water, one shark latched onto Melissa's arm. Suddenly, in a bone-crunching bite, both sharks bit off Melissa's limbs. Melissa couldn't even scream, as another shark bit off her head. The sharks continued their harrowing attack. Some sharks began ripping the other limbs, while one bit on Melissa's torso, dragging her mangled, lifeless body to the depths of the ocean. Melissa swallowed Jordan headfirst. Jordan found herself trapped in the shark's powerful jaws, her body being pulled under the surface by the beast's weight. The ocean water turned murky, the once clear turquoise now a deep and murky blue. As she struggled to free herself from the grip of the monstrous predator, she could feel the sharp edges of its razor-like teeth sinking deep into her skin, threatening to crush her bones with each bite. Jordan's worst fears had become a brutal reality as the powerful bull shark's massive jaws clamped down on her body, sinking its razor-sharp teeth deep into her skin. She felt she was being torn apart as the shark's jaws relentlessly mauled her, causing her flesh to tear and blood to gush out into the water. The shark's vicious attacks smashed Jordan's helpless body back and forth, forcing her to endure wave after wave of agony and terror. She screamed for help, but the sound of her cries was drowned out by the thrashing of the water and the roar of the shark. Jordan was trapped, unable to escape the monstrous predator's grip. With each moment that passed, the pain became more unbearable. She could feel the shark's massive teeth sinking deeper into her chest, shredding through muscle and bone as the predator fought to claim its prey. Every moment of the shark's frenzied attack caused Jordan's wounds to gape wider, causing more damage with every vicious bite. Jordan's world became a blur of pain and fear. She knew little besides the agony that ripped through her body with each passing moment. Her screams were silenced by the water and the shark's powerful grip, leaving her feeling alone and helpless. As the shark attacks continued, Jordan began to lose her grip on life. Her consciousness began slipping away as she felt herself dragged deeper into the abyss. She could feel her strength waning and her body growing weaker every moment. It was only a matter of time before the shark claimed her life, and she knew it. She had nearly given up all hope of survival when a group of fishermen suddenly spotted the commotion from the shore and raced to her rescue. The men charged into the water, armed with harpoons and knives, their faces set in grim determination. They knew they were up against a formidable foe, but they refused to give up without a fight. Minutes passed in a blur of adrenaline-fueled chaos as the powerful thrash of the shark created huge waves that threatened to capsize the fishing boats. The men refused to back down, their resolve unwavering as they fought with all their might to save Jordan's life. Finally, the shark released its grip on Jordan's lifeless body, and the fishermen quickly scooped her up and brought her back to shore. The scene, eyes fixed on the mysterious object. His heart raced with anticipation and a hint of fear as he drew closer and closer, eager to solve the mystery of what had caused his wipeout. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream pierced the air, shattering the peacefulness of the ocean. Tim's fellow surfers turned in horror to see their fearless friend writhing in agony, his body convulsing with pain. As they swam frantically towards him, they saw a monstrous shadow emerging from the ocean's depths, a 14-foot-long tiger shark, its jaws gaping wide as it closed in on its prey. In an instant, the ferocious predator clamped down on Tim's torso with a force that could crush bone, thrashing him around in the water like a rag doll. The water turned crimson with blood as Tim fought for his life, his screams muffled by the sheer force of the attack. His friends watched in horror as the shark savagely manhandled its victim, its razor-sharp teeth tearing into flesh and bone. In a desperate attempt to save himself, Tim summoned all his strength and began to punch the massive tiger shark with all his might. His fist rained down on the creature's head and body, but the shark seemed unfazed, its grip on him unrelenting. The other surfers, frozen in shock at first, suddenly sprang into action, their instincts for survival kicking in. With their hearts pounding in their chest, they frantically swam away from the scene, the fear of the deadly predator chasing them. After what seemed like an eternity, the shark finally released its vice-like grip on Tim's body. But it was too late. The damage had already been done. Tim's body was mangled and battered, his flesh torn and bleeding profusely into the water. With all his strength drained from him, Tim clung desperately to his surfboard, using it as a makeshift life raft to keep him afloat. But he knew that he was at the mercy of the ocean and the relentless predator that still circled ominously nearby. As if the first attack wasn't enough, the monstrous shark suddenly reappeared from the ocean's murky depths and with lightning speed clamped down on Tim's shoulder with its razor-sharp teeth. The surfer's body went rigid with pain, and he didn't even have the strength to scream, as the second attack proved fatal. The shark's powerful jaws dug deep into Tim's flesh, rending muscle and bone asunder with frightening ease. The surfer's mangled body went limp as the shark thrashed about in a frenzy, shaking him relentlessly and tearing him apart in a gruesome display of savagery. With one final pull, the shark dragged Tim's lifeless body down into the dark and foreboding depths of the ocean, where it would become just another victim of the endless and unforgiving expanse of the sea. Despite the best efforts of the Coast Guards and lifeguards, they couldn't save poor Tim from the clutches of the monstrous shark. Even as they combed the waters for any sign of him, their efforts proved vain. The ocean had claimed yet another victim. Days turned into weeks, and weeks like the teeth of some great sea beast. Here and there, scattered among the rocks, were little pockets of sandy beach, the perfect spot for intrepid fishermen like Jonathan Hansel to cast their lines and wait for the day's catch. As Jonathan sat in his boat, his eyes fixed on the horizon, he felt a sudden tug on his fishing net. It was a strong one that could only mean one thing: he had caught something big. With a grunt of effort, he began to reel in his catch, anticipation mounting with every passing moment. As Jonathan pulled up his fishing net with great effort, the weight of its catch almost toppled his small boat. With a determined look, he heaved and hoisted, sweat beading on his forehead. Finally, the net breached the water's surface, revealing a sight that filled Jonathan with awe: an enormous bull shark trapped within its confines. The creature's menacing appearance was accentuated by its razor-sharp teeth and powerful jaws as it thrashed violently, driven by an instinctual desire to break free. Jonathan's eyes sparkled with exhilaration and anticipation at capturing such a formidable and fearsome predator. Ignoring the danger ahead, Jonathan decided to test his fishing skills to the limit and catch the shark alive. He knew it was a risky move, but the thrill of the challenge overpowered his common sense. Jonathan had been fishing off the coast of Sewell's Point, Florida for years, and had seen his fair share of big catches. But nothing could have prepared him for the 12-foot-long bull shark he had just pulled up in his fishing net. As he stood on the deck of his boat, he could see the massive predator thrashing about, its gills moving frantically as it tried to breathe out of the water. Despite knowing the potential danger, Jonathan became complacent. He underestimated the volatile nature of these creatures and thought he had everything under control. With a false sense of security, he let the net loose to release the fish and the shark onto the deck. But suddenly, the shark jolted into action, catching Jonathan by surprise. In an instant, the massive creature clamped its powerful jaws around one of Jonathan's legs, sinking its razor-sharp serrated teeth deep into his flesh. With a blood-curdling scream, Jonathan's body arched in agony as the razor-sharp teeth of the bull shark tore into his flesh. The pain was unbearable, and his mind struggled to comprehend the horror unfolding. His companion, startled by the scream, rushed to witness the gruesome scene. The once docile shark had transformed into a ferocious and savage predator, its diminished state rendering it even more unpredictable. With relentless fury, the shark thrashed and writhed on the deck, forcefully dragging Jonathan's body in its wake. Blood sprayed in every direction, saturating the deck and leaving behind a haunting shade of deep crimson. As Jonathan's body twisted and contorted in pain, he tried desperately to fight back, his fists pounding against the shark's rough skin. But the shark seemed indifferent to his punches, as if it were a mere annoyance. Its powerful jaws remained locked, and Jonathan's leg was now little more than a mangled mesh of flesh and bone. Antonio, Jonathan's fishing companion, was a man of action, and his instincts kicked in as soon as he saw his friend being attacked by the vicious shark. He quickly reached for the spear, and with all his might, thrust it repeatedly into the shark's body, causing it to writhe and convulse in pain. The thrashing shark and Jonathan's anguished screams filled the air, creating a sense of chaos and panic on the boat. Despite the shark's weakened state, it refused to let go of its prey, dragging Jonathan along the deck like a dog's chew toy. Blood was everywhere, staining the deck red and slick with its sticky metallic scent. Antonio knew he had to act fast before the shark could do more damage. The shark's movements grew weaker with each stab until it found, but what she saw made her heart sink. A monstrous great white shark, nearly twice her size, had clamped down under her leg with razor-sharp teeth. The beast's jaws were like a vice, easily tearing through her flesh and bone. Patricia's screams were drowned out by the shark thrashing violently, like a demon from the depths of the lake. In desperation, Patricia's survival instincts kicked in, and she began to punch and claw at the shark, trying to fight it off. But her efforts were futile, and the beast only became more enraged, attacking her with even greater ferocity. Each second felt like an eternity as the shark mauled her mercilessly, leaving Patricia helpless and vulnerable to its wrath. As Patricia thrashed in the water, her friends screamed in terror, their cries echoing across the lake. The once tranquil waters had turned into a crimson pool, tainted by the blood that flowed from Patricia's wound. Despite the pain, Patricia fought to stay afloat, pushing and punching the massive predator in a desperate attempt to free herself. The shark finally released her leg, but it was too late. Patricia was too injured to swim back to shore quickly, and her friends watched in horror as the shark continued to circle her like a vulture, waiting for its next opportunity to attack. Suddenly, the water erupted as the shark leapt out with breathtaking speed. It was like a torpedo, homing in on its target with deadly accuracy. The shark's massive jaws opened wide, engulfing Patricia's head and upper body in one swift, bone-chilling snap. Blood sprayed across the water's surface as the shark crunched on her flesh and bones, decapitating her instantly. As quickly as the attack had begun, it was over. Patricia's mangled carcass slowly sank into the water, her leg and head missing. The shark, sated by its prize, retreated into the depths, leaving behind a gruesome reminder of the tragedy. The authorities arrived at the lake to investigate. After a long search, they found Patricia's mutilated remains on the banks of the lake, spirits leading the way. Suddenly, in the heat of the moment, William swam too far away from Brooke, who struggled to keep up with his friend's pace. Brooke's heart pounded with fear as he called out to William, his voice lost in the waves and the wind. He desperately tried to orient himself and locate his friend, but the vast expanse of the water made it difficult to see anything. As Brooke paddled through the water, he strained to hear over the crushing waves. Then, amidst the roar of the ocean, he heard it. William's voice rang out in a desperate cry. Brooke's heart raced as he pushed his body to swim faster, his arms slicing through the icy waters. Finally, he saw his friend thrashing in the water, as a monstrous creature attacked him. The great white shark was a behemoth, spanning 16 feet from snout to tail. Brooke felt a chill run down his spine as he watched the creature's massive jaws clamp down on William's leg, ripping through flesh and sinew easily. The water turned red with blood as William screamed in agony, his body tossed back and forth like a rag doll in the beast's jaws. Without a moment of hesitation, Brooke surged forward. He knew he was risking his own life, but he couldn't leave his friend to die alone. His heart pounding, he swam closer to the shark, every stroke bringing him closer to the terrifying creature. In the chaos that ensued, the ocean became a frenzy of violent splashing and thrashing, with William's helpless form caught in the jaws of the giant predator. The water around him turned a deep crimson red as the shark's razor-sharp teeth tore into his flesh. Brooke watched in horror as his best friend was lifted several feet into the air, helpless and at the mercy of the monstrous creature. Despite the danger, Brooke summoned his courage and swam toward the attack scene. He could feel his heart pounding in his chest as he drew closer, and his stomach churned as he realized the severity of William's wounds. With a hunting knife, he began to gouge the shark's eyes, hoping to free his friend from the predator's grasp. But the shark was relentless. Its powerful jaws clamped tightly around William's leg. Brooke's attacks only made the shark angrier, and the serrated teeth continued sinking deeper into the flesh of its helpless victim. William's screams of agony echoed through the water, growing weaker as his strength began to wane. Still, Brooke refused to give up. He knew that he had to keep fighting, that he couldn't let his friend die in the jaws of this monster. With renewed determination, he began to stab and gouge at the shark's eyes with all his might. And finally, after what felt like an eternity, the shark recoiled in pain and retreated back into the depths of the ocean. In the aftermath of the brutal attack, William's body was a dreadful sight. His leg hung limply, barely attached by a few strips of skin. Multiple lacerations and bite marks marred his body, some bleeding profusely. Luckily, 4 courageous swimmers came to his rescue, pulling him onto an inner tube and fighting against the waves that crashed against them. But as they struggled towards the shore, the shark circled them, its beady eyes fixed on its prey. It seemed that the predator was waiting for the perfect moment to strike again, to finish what it had started. The journey to safety felt like an eternity, with the shark constantly lurking in the shadows, waiting for its chance to pounce. Finally, they reached the shore and laid William down, but it was too late. The damage had been done, and the reality set in that he had not survived the attack. As they examined the gruesome injuries that covered his body, they could only imagine the unbearable pain he must have felt. The shark had bitten him at least 4 times, leaving a trail of carnage in its wake. William's right leg was almost completely severed, and the femoral artery had been cut. His left thigh, torso, and back were gashed, and a large chunk had been ripped from his right buttocks. The sheer brutality of the attack was undeniable, and it would go down as one of the most vicious attacks in the area's history. Scores of beachgoers had witnessed the horror unfold, and the memory of the brutal attack would stay with them for years to come. The beach that was once a place of death, he encountered mesmerizing sights, maneuvering through colorful coral reefs and vibrant schools of fish. On this particular day, Wilson was accompanied by his trusted friend Marcus. Together, they ventured along the coast of Key Biscayne, searching for the perfect catch. The sea was calm, and the sun was beating relentlessly on their backs, but Wilson was unfazed. He was a master of this environment, intimately acquainted with its quirks and dangers. As they ventured deeper into the ocean, Wilson's senses were heightened, scanning the depths for any signs of danger. He knew that the bull sharks that prowled these waters could be unpredictable, but he also knew that they generally kept to themselves, leaving the scuba divers alone. As he delved deeper into the water, he saw a massive bull shark 15 feet long lurking in the distance. Wilson had seen bull sharks before, but this one was different. It was larger than most, and it didn't seem to be in a hurry to leave. Instead, it circled him as if studying him with a sense of curiosity. Wilson tried to ignore it and focused on his task, but he couldn't shake the feeling that the shark was watching him closely. Despite his attempts to ignore the shark, the creature's presence grew more ominous with each passing moment. Wilson was on high alert, aware that this wasn't normal behavior for a bull shark. His attention shifted from fishing to the shark, which had become more menacing with each passing minute. The once clear waters now appeared murky and dark, as if the shark had brought a cloud of unease. The water churned as the massive bull shark streaked towards Wilson and Marcus, its dorsal fin slicing through the water like a knife. As it closed in, Wilson's heart raced with fear and confusion. He had seen countless sharks before, but this one was different. It seemed to be studying him, eyeing him up like a piece of prey. Frantically, Wilson signaled to Marcus, but before they could react, the shark lunged towards them with incredible speed, its powerful jaws gaping wide. The air was filled with bubbles as Wilson fired his spear gun in desperation, but it was too late. The shark's teeth sank into his flesh, tearing through skin, muscle, and bone with terrifying force. Wilson's body thrashed wildly as the shark shook him like a rag doll, its razor-sharp teeth leaving behind gaping wounds that spurted blood into the water. Marcus watched in horror as his friend's body was ripped apart by the frenzied predator. Marcus's heart raced as he watched the attack unfold before his very eyes. Time seemed to slow down as he scrambled to come up with a plan, any plan, to save his friend. But before he could act, the shark's powerful jaws clamped down on Wilson's legs again, tearing through flesh and bone easily. The water turned red with blood, and Marcus could feel his heart pounding in his chest. With a sudden burst of strength, the shark jerked Wilson's body to and fro, shaking him like a chew toy. And then, in a single violent motion, the creature ripped both of William's legs from his body, leaving him to drift lifelessly in the water. The relentless shark, undeterred by the havoc it had caused, persisted in its ferocious attack, driven by insatiable hunger. In a horrifying moment, it savagely locked its jaws onto Wilson's torso, its teeth sinking deep into his flesh, causing agonizing pain and tearing through his muscles. Marcus knew he had to act quickly as the shark continued its attack. With steady hands, he aimed his spear gun at the monster, its barbs glinting in the sunlight. Taking a deep breath, he pulled the trigger, the sharp point of the spear sinking deep into the shark's gills. The beast thrashed and twisted, writhing in agony before retreating.